Welcome, everybody. This is the Life Enthusiast Online Radio and TV Network. I'm Scott. He is Martin. We're going to be talking about the environment, the pollution that's being spewed out all over the world, and how that stresses your body and what you can do about it right after this. Martin, before we get into today's topic, and generally speaking, everybody, a lot of times some of the stuff we talk about is stuff that we either talked about a few days ago, or in this case, about 5 or 10 minutes before we went on the air, okay? But I think that there was a really valuable lesson that we need to be telling people over and over and over again, Martin, and that is what we put into or do not put into our mouths affects us deeply. And we're doing kind of this beginning series on stress. And one of the things Martin said was, I'm just trying to get some food in before we go on the air so that I can be nice and calm and not irritable. And I said, I had something to eat 15 minutes ago because I was feeling the same thing. We don't all react the same way to being hungry, but or eating the wrong things, because we're all individuals, we're all different, we have different metabolic typings and everything else. But it just struck me that most people do not make a connection between how they feel at this moment and what they put in their mouth like 2 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, 8 hours ago. And so, Martin, any comments you want to make on that before we continue?
Right. Well, so we have the macronutrient stuff, right? The fats, proteins, carbohydrates, the stuff that nourishes us, the stuff that we turn into calories, or that are calories that we turn into nutrients that we create energy out of. So we need to have enough of it. I mean, one form of stress is not enough calories. Starvation could be a source of stress. And the opposite, of course, just as much. If you overdo calories, if you overeat, you're going to actually be causing stress to yourself by having too much glucose in circulation, which will cause you to have to pump more insulin, which will then cause you to become overweight, which will then cause you to have all kinds of long-term health problems stemming from that. I mean, that's just the macronutrients. And then there are the micronutrients, all of the stuff that's antioxidants and, the vitamins, A, B, C, D, E, K, the 12 different vitamin Bs. And then the plant stuff, right? Phytonutrients, it's called. And this includes polyphenols and pigments and you name it, all that stuff. If you have too much of something, it becomes toxic. If you have not enough of something, it becomes a detriment. That's just the nutrition. But I thought that we were going to be talking about the industrial age, Scott.
We are, but I wanted to, and I think it's something that we need to tell. I know I need to constantly be reminded, right? Like, you're making a choice to stick something in your mouth. And is that going to improve your health, or is that going to be detrimental to your health? If you have a habit of drinking a can of Coke a day, you can't just say, I'm not going to drink a can of Coke today. You have to replace that habit with a new habit. And sometimes it's, I'm going to replace it with a glass of water. And sometimes that's too big of a jump. I'm going to replace it with some juice or something. Like it's a progression always, right? Because you want to get somewhere, but everything's a journey. So you have to take the steps, and you have to make sure that, you're taking the right steps. And everyone,
I'm sorry.
I was going to say, everyone tuning in is in that process of learning what the right steps are, because we've been told and taught and hammered and advertised to with all sorts of things that are not necessarily in our best interests.
Yeah, you're putting the really wise word of the too much of a change, right? You don't want to make the changes so hard as to create a shock.
Right.
And so even when you're switching from a crappy lifestyle to a healthy lifestyle, you need to do that gradually. Otherwise, you put yourself through a horrendous grinder.
Martin, do you know anyone, this popped in my head as you were talking, do you know anyone that has like that had a poor lifestyle and then went to like a yoga retreat, and all of a sudden they're like eating raw vegetables when they haven't had a carrot in 3 years and drinking filtered water when they have 3 beer every night? I'm just wondering what sort of toxic withdrawal they might go through.
Yeah, I don't know anyone like that. I don't recall. But I can promise you that I have caused myself plenty of detox reactions by trying new things on myself.
Right. Cool.
Too much of a change, and you create a wave of toxins. When your body senses that you have changed something, it will react to it, and it will start dumping stored toxins. And by doing so, will create a wave of what's known as the Herxheimer reaction, detoxification reaction, and you will be overwhelming your detox pathways. You can only pee out so much. Your kidneys' capacity is not infinite, and your liver's capacity is not infinite. And so when the natural pathways start overloading, you end up spilling it by throwing up or having diarrhea or having skin breakouts because it just starts pushing through the pores of your skin. It's not wonderful when you overdo it.
Right. So to restate what you just said, we live in a toxic environment, whether it's our food and we're going to get to the, industrial pollutions in a second. And our body doesn't know what to do with it, right? Like we have pollutants now that 200-300 years ago never existed. And so the body has no experience with what to do with this plastic or what to do with this mercury or what to do with these elements that it never really had much to do with before. Or if it did, it was in such minute quantities, it wasn't a problem. Now it gets stored in places that have low circulation, like fat, some of the organs, right?
Yeah.
Now, and it stays there and everything is happy. And then all of a sudden you say, I'm going to detox and clean out my system. And instead of just like a couple of these fat cells releasing the toxins, you've got zillions of releasing the toxin. The poor liver says, I'm full, boys, can't come in here. The kidneys say, we're full, you can't come in here. And of course, one of the largest detox organs we have is our skin. And boom, we break out, or we've got pimples all over our bodies. And what is that? Pus. That pus is infection and toxins being released. And so what do? We go to the doctor, and the doctor gives us something to stop it. Instead of just saying, wait a couple of weeks until it's cleared up, or back off of your detox and let it clear up, because it's a good thing. You want this stuff out of you. You don't want it stuck back in you.
Yeah. There are some really important things worth saying as you're talking about the industrial age, and that's this. Our body is genetically unprepared for industrial age toxins, especially heavy metals. But the volatile organic compounds, the products derived from petrochemicals, are also in that class. And what happens is it indeed goes into tissues of low circulation, which is fat, cartilage, and bone. So fat, of course, fat around your belly, that's easy, but there's also fat in your brain. Your brain is mainly made of fat cells, so it ends up there. So now the important part now is that when you start your detoxification process, you want that stuff to be not just released and stirred up, because much like jumping into a mud puddle that looks clear, you jump in it, all of a sudden it's muddy water again. That's what happens when you start a process that does not have enough absorption. There's a really big distinction about stuff being bound or not bound to something that's going to escort it out of your body. And so when you have unbound detox process, like for example, you take some homeopathics that are going to kick up all the dirt, all of a sudden you will start having symptoms. Like, for example, a sense of unreality. Your perception of your senses will start shifting and changing when your nervous system is impacted by the circulating toxins. The other thing I wanted to mention is this. The immune system, in its attempts to get rid of these things, but not having effective means of binding and escorting these things out of your body, will throw the last resort attempt, and that is mold, the ultimate decomposer, which will, when we die, decompose us back into the constituent elements, is mold. So fungus and mold within the body is in fact a sign that the immune system itself is trying to get rid of stored toxins and not succeeding at it. Because there's no way that you can mold away heavy metals like, I don't know, lead, mercury, cadmium. They will not go away with mold. So the mold will continue. You will have candida growing into a high degree, not understanding why it keeps coming back. It's coming back because your body is actually growing it, trying to get rid of the toxins that it has stored.
That's a really tough problem, isn't it? Because you have the body doing what it can to get rid of it, which won't get rid of it, but it causes a whole bunch of other problems because we know candida is, tired and sick and, the fungus and the mold and the warts and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Now, there's an interesting comment that came in from Kimmy. Kimmy says, and this thing clogs lymphatic system.
Right.
Well,
thanks, Kimmy.
Yeah, thank you. So there are two types of toxicities or cleanses. One is the clogging of the body with the normal metabolic process. Like if you eat crappy food, as in too much starch or whatever, you will create natural metabolites that you are not coping getting rid of. So that's for that, the cleanses that will clean the lymphatic system and sweating and sauna and simple liver cleanse and all of that, that'll work on the metabolic cleanses or metabolic problems. And these are fixable in a reasonably easy way. The stuff that I'm actually talking about is industrial age toxins for which there is no natural technology within the body. And for that, I found two things up to now. One is EDTA, which is a universal chemical binder, and zeolite or clinoptilolite that binds all these electropositive things into its electronegative structures and drags them out of the body.
That's good. And I think you bring up a really good point in that we are in a situation where it's not going away. We're not going to go into a pre-industrial state anytime soon, I don't believe. I mean, the world could turn upside down and inside out, and then we would be, devastated. But I mean, let's hope that doesn't happen. But we are having to learn how to survive now in a post-industrial state. And the good news is there is good news. Like even though our body doesn't know about what these things are and what to do about it, there are natural, I don't want to say remedies, there are natural solutions that can support our body in eliminating, because we're really talking about eliminating. And Tim Judge has a question. So before I bring Tim Judge on with his question, or bring his question on, one of the things we want to remind everybody is we're going to talk about something. And if you have a question, absolutely put it in the comments and we'll deal with it as soon as we can. But also at the end, we're going to talk for 20, 25 minutes. And at the end, we want to open it up. If you have any questions on any topic regarding your health, we're not going to be able to help you with any political topics. Or
we could try.
Yeah, we have our opinions, but that's not the point of this show. It's to help you and support you in your health. And so, if you want to ask a question now, great. If you want to stay for what I call the after party, feel free to do that as well. So Tim says, what's best for removing iron that are we ingesting from our water supply? Thank you, Tim.
Awesome question. So the number one thing is don't ingest it. So you could use reverse osmosis filtered water or distilled water, even on your crappy water supply. That would probably be a good investment. Another possible way of dealing with it is putting strong magnets on your water pipes that would divert the magnetizable iron oxide that's within the water. Once it's in your body, I mean, there is actually a condition called something, there's the word chrome in it. All of a sudden, it's not coming to me. It's a liver disease that causes people to have to be getting regular bloodletting in order to drain the excess iron that they are not getting rid of naturally.
And so we're talking about iron in the water, but it occurs to me that there's more than just, like, there can be some places where it's iron that's the issue and other places where it's other minerals that are the issue, right?
Sure.
We can see that with that white stuff that builds up because there's too much pH in the water and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But Vancouver, where I've lived for many, many years, they always say we have the best water in the world and everything else. And the problem is I think that they test the water like as soon as it comes out of the filtration system, and they never test the water when it comes out of your tap. So what is the condition of 50 years of pipes with water running through it? What is accumulated in the pipe? What has grown in the pipe? All of those things. So I really think we need to take responsibility for our.
Scott, you kicked open such a horrendous anthill, which is the following, right? So Vancouver has surface water. It rains a lot on the West Coast. And so they are collecting snowmelt and rainwater in a water reservoir, and then they are running it through their filtration and chloridation, and then running it through the pipes. And Vancouver as a city is fairly young, so their pipes are not that old, really. But if you happen to be living anywhere in the Northeast, where the city infrastructure was built in the 1800s or early 1900s, as in like Pennsylvania, New York, Michigan, all of that area, they have technology that includes water mains that are usually iron pipe, and then the last 100 yards, they actually made that with lead pipe. So the possibility for getting a high lead content in your drinking water is pretty high. I remember there recently was a really serious problem in the town of Flint, Michigan, where when they switched supply from one lake to another, the pH of the water switched from being slightly alkaline to being slightly acidic, and they failed to buffer it. They were supposed to be throwing some alkalizing minerals into it to buffer the pH, but they failed to do it, and they were experiencing the leaching. Well, first the coating that was on the inside of the lead pipes was dissolved away with the acidity, and then it was starting to leach the lead. And so then we saw 500 times the lead content as permissible by EPA, and then we were starting to see children of elementary school age showing up with becoming less intelligent. I mean, this is not funny. This knocks 10, 15 points off of your IQ, which means that you're going from A-level student to C-level student just by drinking the water. So Tim is
Tim
jumping in with, my house is 1868 Connecticut. Yep, you're exactly in the epicenter of this water disaster.
So the number one thing is get bottled water, get a water filter. I mean, because I'm thinking, what most people will think is, okay, if my water's not good, I'm going to get bottled water, which is bottled in plastic. And now are you getting stuff leaching out of the plastic into the water that you're drinking?
And are they distilling the water sufficiently, right? You need
right.
You need deionized water. So reverse osmosis usually gets it down to about 50 parts per million. And distillation should get it down below 10 parts per million. Otherwise, you have hard water. Typical water is between 400 and 800 parts per million hardness. So as that. So if you have hard water, you'll be past 800 into more than, right, parts per million. It's called TDS, total dissolved solids. You can buy a TDS meter in a pool supply company for $20 and check your water hardness if you care. But that's not going to tell you what makes the water hard. It just tells you how hard it is.
So if we were to take one conclusion away from today's talk, it would be don't drink tap water.
Oh, that's 100% for the following reason. Chlorine. Why do we put chlorine in water? In order to kill dangerous microbes. Well, it happens to be killing all microbes. All microbes. So when you drink chlorinated water, you are destroying the microbiome within you just as reliably as taking an antibiotic. That is
so
bad news.
Martin, in our body, is it safe to say just slightly under half of us is made up of microbes that aren't really us doing things?
Well, it's a strange number that you would use. If you count the cells, if you count the DNA, then there are 9 times or 10 times more other than me. Like if you count the cells themselves, a typical human would be about 10 trillion, and there would be about 100 trillion non-human cells on
So
me and within me.
These are all symbiotic, usually symbiotic relationships where these cells are here doing stuff that makes us stronger and healthier.
Yeah.
Now there are parasites and other stuff that work against us. And if we end up killing up all the good bacteria, we've got bad bacteria taking over, and now we've got all this disease running through us.
Yes. And so the chlorine is going to wipe out both the good guys and the bad guys, but just like in any abandoned lot, it will not go blooming with carrots and roses. What you'll see instead is pigweed and lamb's quarters and thistle. Anyway, the main point is this. You need to cultivate your inner garden. So you need to be replenishing it with the right stuff, the desirable probiotics, and you need to be feeding it prebiotics, stuff they want, which is usually plant material. And then you need to be not killing it all the time. So therefore, where chlorine's not hard to get rid of, like the easiest way to get rid of chlorine is you boil your water. You can actually boil it away, it will evaporate. Or you can let it sit at room temperature with the top open so that it can gas off. Chlorine will evaporate from your water. What will not disappear is the other toxic stuff that is in the water. Like, for example, the lead of the northeastern United States. Yeah, that's quite the disaster. Therefore, get a decent water filter for your residence. We do sell some, but we certainly do not claim that we have the best for all situations. You need to understand your specific local situation and adjust to that.
So Martin, in terms of a plan, because I tend to be a planner,
Yeah.
It seems like first step would be to take 2 or 3 samples, like take a sample of the water first thing in the morning when you haven't let the water flush through, and then maybe later in the day or in the evening, and then just take it to a lab and say, what's in my water?
If you need to know, or you should really assume that there's just no way it's going to be good enough.
Right. So Tim asked if we have a link to a brand. What I'll do, Tim, is I know Tim well. I'll send it to you, but in the description and in the comments, I'll go to the Life Enthusiast site and I'll pick up some of the better filters that I see there and put it in there.
But in general, if you want, go to the life-enthusiast.com and under home and body care, find the category that relates to water treatment. We have filtered water and energized water and tools that energize water and tools that filter water, and we have filter systems. We go all the way to medical grade water throughout the entire house. If you're a person of means doing a renovation or building a new one, have I got a deal for you? But it's $6,000, right? Every drop of water throughout the system will be filtered, softened, energized.
It'll be beautiful. It'll be like the little spring in the mountains when there's no pollution for 10,000 miles around, right?
Yeah, that sort of thing. Really, properly well restored water. We can do it. However.
Awesome. And Martin, if someone looks at these filters and can't decide what to do and is confused and everything else, the last thing they should do is call you, right?
Or the first thing. Sure.
The first thing.
If you hesitate, I do answer the phone call, and we have support staff that understand stuff. So yeah, we can take a call. So we just got stuck on water, but imagine that this water that we're discussing is actually what's raining upon us, what's used to water the plants that are grown to be feeding us. And all of this pollution, we didn't even start talking about, for example, the coal burning power plants, and there are plenty of them in the country. They put out 50 tons of mercury in the air every year. It goes in the air and it comes down. There are 3,092 at the end of last year coal burning power plants in China, and what they do is they send it in the air and it travels on the jet stream all the way to North America. So we're so clever, we're sending coal to China for them to burn and create pollution, thinking, oh, it's in China. It's coming over the jet stream. We're getting it. We're eating the food that we're growing here that's being rained on by this toxic stuff. And then the other major pollutant that I wanted to mention today is called glyphosate. It's Roundup. 2.2 billion pounds of that, were used in United States in a year. That stuff is water soluble, which means that it will, after it's put on the field, it will dissolve into the soil and do its job, killing the weeds. But then it will also seep into the aquifer, and it will also, with rain, run off into creeks, rivers, oceans. So it pollutes everything. And that as
it doesn't make a distinction between what it kills and what it doesn't kill.
Well, okay, so glyphosate was originally patented as an antibiotic because the way it works, it kills the microbes at the root of the plant so that the plant loses its ability to uptake nutrients. So it's an antibiotic that kills the microbes that kill the plant, starve it. When you drink it, it's affecting the microbiome within your body. So even at microscopic 200 parts per million concentrations, it's noticeable, and it will affect your gut. And by affecting your gut, it will cause, it's called intestinal dysbiosis or permeable bowel, or our way, leaky gut. And leaky gut leads to leaky brain and leaky immune system, and it causes all kinds of downstream problems. Like a leaky immune system, that's the illnesses that, I don't know, I guess we shouldn't be giving names because they might shut off this program. But imagine the thing that people die of all the time. It's caused by a destruction of the microbiome, or the conditions that cause neurological problems, like ability to concentrate, ability to focus on things, ability to, well, the neurotypical behavior of which we see less and less of is triggered by the balance of the microbes. So when you screw up the balance of the microbes, you will end up with people on the spectrum. Not fun.
As you said earlier in the show, Martin, we may have 1 trillion cells that are DNA us, and then we may have 10 trillion that aren't. And what happens when that 10 trillion turns to 5 trillion? Not good things. And so this is one of the things that we're just putting with no care, no concern, no thought into our environment, that, and then we wonder why we have all these autoimmune diseases and cancer running rampant. And not saying that any,
don't be saying those words, Scott.
Who knows if any of it is related, but nobody's trying to find out, and that's the problem, right?
Well, the thing is this. We collectively, each one of us, vote with our wallets by spending the dollars on what we want to see more of. So as consumer, individually, I vote for what I want to see done. So when I buy organic food, I'm voting for organic food. When I buy cheap, crappy, toxic food, I'm voting for cheap, crappy, toxic food. Likewise with the water and so on. All these things are really this. Money is like oxygen in the economy. So whatever you put your money into will grow. So also the alternative to that, whatever you put, or whatever you take your money away from, will starve. We do have the power to change the world through our individual behavior. All that has to happen is enough of us pulling on the same side.
And that seems to be a good place to end the show for today. Hang on, and in a minute, if you've got any questions, put them in the comment sections and we'll deal with them. But right now, we're going to do an official closing. So thank you for joining us, everybody. Every Thursday, tune in, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. There's only a few people left. If you've got any health questions you want to ask Martin, now is the time.
Yeah, or forever hold your peace. Huh.
Till next week.
Yeah, till next
Although
week.
we had a few people asking questions in the show, which was great.
Yeah. That's an excellent question. Kimi says, what are my thoughts on hydrogen water? Hydrogen is the simplest of all elements. One electron in the outer layer, one proton in the nucleus, and then if you have heavy water, it will have 1, 2, or 3 neutrons in the nucleus. But the point of this is that hydrogen is the most willing currency of life. The currency of life is the electron. An electron donated is called reduction. Electron taken away is called oxidation. And you know this as oxidative stress, aging. And so wherever electrons are taken away, it's causing stress and aging. And so donating electrons to extinguish this stress is really good. Now, the most typical donors are vitamins, antioxidants in general, and we have vitamins and phytonutrients and short chain fatty acids and polyphenols, all kinds of stuff that is involved in extinguishing this electron deficiency. And hydrogen is one such donor. So drinking water that has been doped up with molecular hydrogen is going to give you the ability to extinguish the deficiencies better than not. So now you need to decide the gadget that I'm going to get that's going to get me the hydrogen water, is it worth the money? At Life Enthusiast, we offer a product that's called H2 Elite, which is a tablet. You can take a tablet, it's something about this big, and you can throw the tablet into a water, and the tablet will dissolve. The bottle should be closed. It takes about 5 minutes to dissolve, and then you drink the thing, and you are getting a daily dose of hydrogen. So you can test it before you buy yourself a gadget. I have seen water gadgets that make hydrogen from $75 on up to $2,000. It will depend. I've seen some stuff on Alibaba at somewhere in the $70 to $80 range, which the same thing somebody in the United States will sell you for $250. Anyway, commercial grade stuff, a couple $1,000s. Would I recommend hydrogen water? Yes, I would. How you get to it, your call.
Cool. I'm just going to see if I can't find a couple questions that I want to ask you. But
I guess we should save all of the other toxin questions for our next week's talk, right?
That's right.
Yeah, water filtration is such a thing. Water filtration is really a local problem. It's best to talk to somebody who understands your local situation, because every well or every city water supply has different issues. Tim mentioned high iron. Well, there could be high iron, high calcite, arsenic, all
Lead.
kinds of things, right? Yeah, you need to treat the local problem.
And the chances are that Kimmy's got another question. Could you expand on the art about the lymphatic system and electro component involved?
Okay. Well, so we were talking about absorbing toxins, and the absorbing of these heavy metals, all of them are electropositive, and you need something electronegative to neutralize them. Vitamin C is electronegative. It will donate the electron. But fighting with heavy metal is sort of like green peas fighting with a brick wall. It just is not an even fight. What was found that zeolite, specifically the cleanup ptylalite, is really good at binding or having these little cages. Think of it like a sponge. In a sponge you will see that it's a porous material with little caves within, and each one of these caves has an electronegative print, so it will attract an electropositive thing and hold it. And because the overall potential is also electronegative, it will get handled by your natural elimination systems. And instead of pushing it into hiding, it will actually push it through the elimination system. So zeolite, when ingested, leaves your body in 3 to 4 hours. And if it has bumped into anything toxic, it will have grabbed it, held onto it, and taken it out of your body. So doing a year or so of zeolite is going to take you a long way towards becoming completely free of all that industrial toxins that has entered your body through the donation from your mother, because it comes through the placenta till you're born with some, and then childhood, I don't know, playing with mercury or licking lead paint walls or taking immunization shots that were contaminated with heavy metals. All of that is inside you. Plus, of course, eating tuna fish or other fish that's in the oceans, they are polluted. And now, these days, eating almost anything comes polluted. Therefore, taking the zeolite will cause this electroconnectivity, grabbing these things wherever they may be in your body and
Martin, did I spell it correctly?
Oh yeah, that's it. That's the category. You'll find this category in the minerals.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great. So how does that impact the lymphatic system?
Not directly. I mean, it's just is that you're going to unload your body of all the toxic things. That's the electro component of this conversation. As far as the lymphatic system, well, I guess the conversation should be lymph moves only when you move.
Right.
When you move your arm or when you walk, bouncing against gravity. Up, down, up, down.
You beat me to the punch because I was going to say get a rebounder and bounce. Because if you get all this stuff out and your lymphatic system is trying to get rid of it and you're sitting doing nothing, it's just going to sit there and you're not going to be able to get it going. So you need to move, bounce on a rebounder, go for a nice walk. It's not like you have to do strenuous movements, but you really have to.
Yeah, every step you take, you rise a little bit and then you fall a little bit. And it's the up, down against gravity that allows for the natural channels to move the lymph. Lymph connects to your bloodstream just under your clavicle. So if you find your clavicle, or the collarbone, if you want to call it that, and run your finger on the lower side of it at about where I'm pointing to, which is just short of your shoulder, you will find an opening, a spot, like a little well that's like a hole. And if you press on it, and if it's really painful, your lymphatic outlet is stressed. Anyway, that's the story. And it's on both sides.
Not painful for me, so that's good news.
That's good news for Scott. I'm familiar with it hurting, and it's not hurting me today.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
And so that's the connection between how the lymph dumps all of its content into the bloodstream, and then the bloodstream gets filtered through the liver and the kidneys and the spleen, these being your filtering organs, and that gets eliminated. The liver turns it into bile, which then goes through the colon, the gut, out, and kidneys that goes into the urethra, out through your urine. You get rid of stuff that way. If it's stuck in the lymphatic system, then sauna is your best friend.
I was going to ask, how would doing a sauna impact this? And
it's an awesome thing. Awesome. Very, very good.
We should be sweating a lot more than we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's a really good way to detox, right?
Yeah. Funny thing about sweating, scant perspiration is a sign of underperforming thyroid. And so people think, oh, it's so cool, I don't sweat. That actually is a sign of trouble. You should be sweating readily upon exertion.
Right.
Of course, it's not.
That's really how our society is backwards, right? Like, it's like, oh, he sweats and he smells. It's like, yeah, but he's getting rid of a bunch of bad stuff. So,
Right. And the smelling really is the bacteria that are living on your surface eating the proteins that you have eliminated. So you could use something like the magnesium oil and rub it in your armpits, and it will effectively disable all of the bacteria that would cause the smell.
Right.
So you solve two things at the same time. You're absorbing a magnesium and you're killing off the odor-causing microbes.
Right. So for those that maybe just joined us and haven't heard you talk about magnesium before, why should we have more magnesium in, I was going to say in our diet, that's not really true, but in our body?
Well, it should be in the diet, and it isn't, because we have a problem in the soil. Our soils in general are lower in magnesium than they should be. And so we're not ingesting enough of it. And magnesium should be balanced with calcium because those two control the autonomic nervous system. Calcium pushes toward the sympathetic, the fight or flight. Magnesium pushes toward the parasympathetic, the rest, repair, digest. So when you are under magnesium, that you're going to be also under parasympathetic, which will mean that you will wear out faster because of the stress and not repair because the magnesium is not there to kick you into the parasympathetic side. There are hundreds of different functions in the body that are controlled by this balance. Your vagus nerve is involved in controlling it. I don't know. I could go on for 10 minutes about it, but let's just cut it there.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll if there's interest, we'll spend a show talking about the importance of magnesium and calcium and the balance between the two. All right, Martin, I think this is a good time to wrap her up. Thank you, everybody, for staying. And every Thursday afternoon Eastern Time, we're 2:30 Eastern Time, we're going to be here. And hopefully you'll be able to join us.
Keep armed with questions. We'll answer them.
That's right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.